Hello, this is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer.
Welcome home. Soar into tower. We are ready for takeoff.
Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey, it's Amy from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey Clubbers, it's Scott from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, it's Kathleen from DVC Clubhouse.
Welcome aboard. It's Phil from DVC Clubhouse.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Debrief podcast brought to you by DVC Clubhouse. This is Amy, joined as always by my co-hosts, Phil, Kathleen, and Scott. I made it through that time. At this point, I mean, I messed up so badly the other day that it doesn't even matter now.
I'm a little disappointed. I thought you were going to mess up. I owe Phil $20.
And I owe you 20 back, so it's even. Welcome aboard, guys. Feels
Hey,
like
guys.
it's been at least half a forever, right?
It's been a while.
I mean, not for the listeners, but for us, yeah.
Yeah, they still got their weekly dose of our podcast, but I don't think we've recorded in 3 weeks, maybe 4.
Yeah, it's been a while.
We've been a little busy.
Which is why the logging in didn't go so smoothly for me today.
We weren't
out
going to
of
bring it
practice.
up. We were just going to let you pretend like everything was perfect.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's like
Blame it on the kids.
times like this. Oh, well, especially when it is their fault. But it's times like this when I wish that I had an IT guy that I could just call.
As someone who actually has an IT guy, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Either A, it's always your fault, B, it was never broken in the first place, or C, he shows up and it magically starts working again. I don't know.
That is
I mean,
true. We have an IT department, and they literally log on the computer, and 30 seconds later make me feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
And in fairness, the first thing an IT guy tells you to do is to restart your computer. And that is actually the thing that just worked for me. So,
I was going to say the
You
first
know.
words were always, did you restart it? Yes, 4 times. Now please come
Right.
down here and fix it.
right. So anyway, the reason why we haven't been on all 4 of us together in a while is because we've all had our various travels, including Phil's 10-day trip where he was staying at the Island Tower, and Kathleen and Scott had a night at the Island Tower as well. So we thought that we could chat about that now that we've actually all had a chance to stay there to discuss our thoughts, because as Phil has put it, he has thoughts.
I have lots of thoughts, good and bad, but oh boy, do I have some thoughts. And it sounds, based on our various conversations, like I'm not alone in this group. And based on my conversations with various cast members over that week, we are not alone amongst the majority.
Agree.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what the conversations that you had with cast members, because I mean, I feel like a lot of the online chatter is about how amazing how beautiful it is. I personally have not heard a lot of criticism of the Island Tower. And, you know, I think that there were a lot of people who were like super excited about it. And maybe that excitement is kind of like clouding some people's judgment. But I have a lot of thoughts, and I've had the thoughts since I stayed there in the deluxe studio in January. And so Phil, you stayed in a 1-bedroom, and Kathleen and Scott stayed in a duo studio. So between the 4 of us, we have stayed in 3 different units. And I had said on the previous podcast when we were talking about your trip that I didn't want to say anything. I kind of have sat on my
But
feelings.
you know me well enough. You knew exactly what my issues were going to be.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to sit on this, and then we can talk about it when you get back, because I didn't want to ruin anything. I just wanted you to experience it without having a lot of my opinions. I
You
shared
wanted to
some
see
of
if
my
you were going to get
opinions.
some allies by the time I was done.
Well, I wanted you to experience it without knowing what my opinions were, because I wanted to see if you and I were going to be on the same page about this. And so I think that we've had you were texting me, so we had a little bit of back and forth, but we haven't really, since you've come back, like really taken a deep dive into it. So I'm excited to hear all of your experiences when you were staying there. So
Well, let's start with what's good before we go and get into our issues with it, because there are a lot of great things, at least I think, about that tower, about the location, about how beautiful it is. I'd be curious to hear your feedback, because I think that there are definitely some positives to staying there. We would stay there again. Some things need to be fixed, obviously, but it is breathtaking. I'm not going to say that it's not. The kids were overawed when they walked into the lobby. Some of the fine details. I mean, there's a lot of positives that can be shared about that resort. What did you guys see?
I mean, for me, the biggest positive I had was I think that the view from the balcony of my room of the fireworks was absolutely amazing. Sitting on my balcony and watching Happily Ever After with Allie, the two of us just out there, it was, and you could hear the music. That to me is really, for me, the number one reason why I would stay there again, is if I wanted to be able to have like such a great view of those fireworks from a room. Because I think that there's really nowhere that you can stay where you have like such a direct view of those fireworks unobstructed on a balcony.
The angle across the lagoon cannot be beat, even from the other waterfront. I suppose Eritrea and some of the others on that west side of Poly probably have similar angles, but the angle coupled with the height of those higher rooms is just absolutely perfect for the sight lines.
Yeah, and because you can see all of Seven Seas Lagoon from up there, it gives you not just a view of the fireworks, but it gives you this vantage point, this kind of bird's eye view of Seven Seas Lagoon that you don't even really get it from the Contemporary, because there's a lot of obstructing the view from the rooftop up there. So it's just, watching all of the boats gather before the fireworks, the boats that were doing fireworks cruises, was really cool. Something that you don't necessarily notice from anywhere else. So that to me was really just the most like awe inspiring view thing for me of the entire island tower.
Out of curiosity, what floor did everybody stay on?
6.
We were on the 6th.
Let me look.
We were on the 5th.
I think I was higher than that. But continue to talk, and I'll
6th
I'll
floor
scroll.
premium view is what ours was categorized as. I'm not sure how they do the categories anymore. Is it resort, preferred, and premium? Is that what they
Yes.
do now?
So you guys
Yes.
were facing the lagoon.
Yes.
Yes.
I had a theme park view. And so I don't know. I thought I had a picture with my room number in it. It was pretty high. I think that I might have been 2 from the top. So I was up there pretty high. I mean, I can show you guys. This is the view that I had.
So yeah, 2 from the top. Just the center is 10 floors, if I recall correctly. So that would have put you somewhere around 8.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe 8. So, I definitely had like and this is an instance where I would say that definitely the higher the floor, the better for that view. One thing I have seen online is I've seen people complain about having a low floor when they have paid for like a preferred view or a theme park
Yeah,
view.
I actually saw a couple of conversations where points were refunded because they paid for a premium view and they're on the first floor and there's nothing
Yeah.
premium. You're just looking at the walkway.
Right. So, definitely getting a high floor definitely makes a huge difference there. So that was my favorite part of the island tower.
That's actually my favorite part of the island tower. Our view was really good. Like
Yeah,
we were like the fireworks were literally right there. Like it was perfect. That really was my favorite part. Was that view. I mean, I get that the location of it, but to get places from that location is difficult.
Yeah, we're going to get there in a minute. I wanted to try and focus on the positives first.
Yeah, but that was my favorite part.
That's what I'm trying to think about is the positives, but I think it's just the view. Like you guys said, it's a really cool, unique view that you don't get anywhere else. But I could see the issue with, because there were people that actually had duo studios I was reading online that actually had first and second floor and premium view, and they had no, basically no view at all of Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, it's the same view you get sitting on the AstroTurf right on the little hill in front of it.
Right.
I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just trying to think of something else that was like a positive, but there's nothing wrong with it. It is a beautiful addition. It's a beautiful building. The way they did the theming in the lobby, if you talk to cast members, certain things that they put in the lobby, there's stories behind the table that's in there. There's all kinds of things that are really cool and unique, and it's a really good addition to the Polynesian. But I'm just gonna stop there.
I mean, I'll jump in. I think the lobby itself, people have compared it to Hyatt's, and as someone who travels a lot on business, it's just not. It's not even the same class. It's not even close. The attention to detail inside that lobby, I thought, was stunning. From the artwork on the far wall that had Tamatoa and a turtle and all the greenery, the little two-hulled catamaran they have in the glass case, the fishing netting that is all over that they made art of, all of the driftwood that they turned into the art, everything there I thought really had a fantastic theme. And interestingly, it's not the same theme as classic Polynesian, but I thought it just fits so well for the newer tower that if they had tried to just copy the Polynesian theme, I don't think it would have worked inside of that tower. It just wouldn't have had the same feel as the longhouses. I thought the lighting was spectacular. The cast members were above and beyond, I think, any other selection of cast members we have ever had at any other resort. They were in the lobby talking all the time, opening doors, asking if you needed anything. They knew our names by the second or third day. They'd talk to us in the morning. They would greet us at night as we came back. I thought the whole experience from a guest perspective was phenomenal. I love the fact that the elevators are locked down with room keys. I'm not going to lie. I think that the viewing areas looking out toward the monorail and the golf course are beautifully decorated. I think the ambiance out there is absolutely amazing. The sense of community, if you're looking at the fireworks at night from those viewing platforms, everyone was just there. They had a beverage in their hand. They were sharing snacks. The kids were all hanging at the glass. The parents were talking. I think overall, they just did a fantastic job of designing and getting all little bits of detail and just turning that into its own little community that's Polynesian, but kind of Polynesian adjacent, if that makes sense, like a modernized version of what the Polynesian would be. I really was impressed, and I was expecting to be underwhelmed. I thought that the one bedroom itself was very well laid out, with the exception of the tub, which you can just about fit 3/4 of a human into. I thought that the woodwork, the little books on the shelf, all of the art that was inside of those little cubbies. I've got a couple of little digs on the room itself, but I thought that it was large. The balcony that we had overlooked the monorail, and we thought kind of cool just to sit out there and have people on the monorail waving. Mackenzie was out there on the balcony waving like a little princess to everyone that went by. She thought it was just awesome to get them to wave back. I think once they finish the construction, it's going to be a lot more beautiful. But I didn't mind the view at all on that side of the hotel, to be honest with you. I thought the points trade-off was really worth it.
I think that's one of our favorite views or room categories that we had at the Grand Floridian over at the villas. It was just looking at the monorail. And that was one of our favorite things. We would just sit out there and just wave every time the monorail went by. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of the things that you just said, I could actually say some negatives about them. I don't know if you guys want to get into the negatives or not, but as far as like cast members and things like that, I didn't see anybody in the lobby. I really didn't see anybody
That's
at all.
shocking to me, because it was one of the biggest takeaways we had, is that there were always 4 or 5, and they were always talking to the kids and greeting us. And we were only a week and a half apart. So that's surprising to me.
I mean, we saw the DVC guide.
Yeah.
That's the one that I saw, but I didn't actually see any actual cast members there.
They were there holding the door for us every time we entered and exited back and forth to the pool or the lagoon side. They were standing there with leis. They were talking to the kids. I'm shocked, because that's a vast difference in a week and a half. I don't think there was any point in time, anytime, day or night, that there weren't at least 3 and sometimes up to 5. And they were not the DVC guides. They were cast members in flowered shirts that were there all the time.
Well, that kind of gets into my other thing that I wanted to talk about. Because, we were at the pool. You were at the pool for a while. And the one thing that we noticed was there was no service. There was no...
Oh, that's on my list.
So when we kind of inquired about it, it was kind of like led down the path to believe that maybe somebody had called off, or maybe they were a little short-staffed. Something to that effect. Because somebody had said that they had done it before. It was done on other days, but today, for some reason, they just didn't have enough manpower to do it.
We were there 10 days, and out of those 10, only on 2 days did we have one individual that was doing only drinks from the bar.
Okay, well, that kind of makes sense then, because on the one day that we were there was nobody. That came around, and getting to the actual to-go bar, part of the bar, the Wailulu, is just a whole nother complaint in itself, because I had an issue with that.
That actually was brought up in my review in an email I sent. So let's get into that. So people understand how this is set up. The pool sits between the tower and the traditional longhouses on the western side. Just on that side of the tower is the Wailulu Bar and Grill. There is an entrance to the bar right there. There is a person with a menu right there. If you order to go, you have to exit the pool, walk around the front of the building, down the pathway by the lagoon, up the stairs, into the air-conditioned lobby with a tile floor, and into the restaurant on the inside to pick up your to-go order. I specifically brought that up with the cast members. I specifically listed it in an email that I sent. That is not only a pain, it's awful customer service. And from a liability standpoint, you've got people leaving the pool in their bare feet, soaking wet, to walk into a tiled floor of the lobby into the restaurant to get there to go, when there's an entrance on the other side of the bar that's 25 feet away from the pool. It's just mind-boggling to me. I actually sent that one to Amy. I said I was shocked that was how it worked.
Yeah, and that's not even my complaint. I wasn't even thinking about that. Mine was actually trying to get to the bar to get a drink, because you have to wait in that line that you were talking about, where the lady's standing there with the menu. If there are people waiting to get into the restaurant, if people have done a walk-up, if there's a line of 6, 7 people just waiting to get in, you have to wait in that line. And then once you get to the front of that line, they bump you up to this little nook in the bar. You cannot skip that line. You can't walk right up to the bar just to order a drink to go back to the pool. So it's a pretty substantial wait if there's a bunch of people in line.
As opposed to the Oasis pool and the lava pool, both of which have food service, delivery, and drink service, walking around the pool the entire time to get it back to you. I was led to believe a couple of times that some of this had to do with staffing issues and the inability to staff it appropriately. But I think for that level of resort and what you're paying in points, it's unconscionable that that's what you have to go through if you're staying at the Cove Pool.
I think I did like the fact they opened up at 7, right?
Yeah, that pool opens up at 7.
So, I mean, that is, because the other one, the lava pool, is 10 o'clock, but I like the fact that they opened early. for the pool, but just the fact that you waited all day and like Phil said, nobody comes around.
I was there first before Scott came, and I was waiting for somebody and just no one ever came. But I was in between like two different families and both of them had complaints. So I was trying to listen to both complaints, and one of them, I don't know what happened, but whatever happened, they got upgraded like big time. And then the other one was about the pool bar, like Wailulu, and then the splash pad wasn't working for the kids. And they're like, this is a brand new resort. Why isn't this working? So.
Well, you guys brought it up before. Let's talk about the transportation, because that was one of my biggest issues for the week.
It's a big issue. Yeah.
Oh, I'll start it off because you and I had a really good. We had to drive separate. I had to go up later. You had gone up early to go to the pool, and then I had gone up after. And I don't know where I'm going. I mean, I know where the Poly parking lot is, but I didn't know if I could park at the tower. But there's, as you're texting me, there's no guard tower, so you can't actually pull up to the tower portion of the Polynesian and park. You, no matter what, have to go to the main building, and you have to check in there. And then that to me was completely ridiculous.
So just to clarify, so everyone listening knows, there's not a traditional guard tower. There is only a Magic Band sensor and a keypad in order to get into the tower lot.
Just for minivan transportation, no ride share.
No,
right,
a ride share. I took a ride share and I was able to get in. I was able to use my Magic Band to scan to get in.
So that's a drop off, not a pickup, which was one of my complaints. So if you have an Uber or a Lyft coming, they cannot pick you up in front of the Island Tower because they can't get through because there's no guard shack. Unless you are there to use your Magic Band to open the gate, they can't get to you. So it is minivan service only. On return, numerous times we'd hand them our Magic Band and they could scan us in, but you cannot get any ride share other than a minivan in front of the Island Tower. And it's a hike to the main building.
Yeah, and Allie actually one day when we came back from the park, she was hungry. Everything was closed. She DoorDashed something, and she had to walk all the way over to the Great Ceremonial House to that lobby to pick it up and come back. I mean, I felt like she was gone for almost an hour by the time she walked over, picked up her food, came back over. It took a really long time. So, because just the distance and walking over there, it is quite a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're going to the bus, which is even further beyond that, getting to the bus is a schlep. And then if you want to go over to the TTC to walk over to the Epcot monorail, that's even further. We timed it. I mean, I think it was like between 15 and 20 minutes from the time we got off the monorail to the time we got to the Island Tower. So it's not convenient by any stretch of the imagination. I think the most convenient transportation you could take is a boat to Magic Kingdom. But otherwise, you really need to be really factoring in a lot of travel time to get to where you're going. And even if you were to walk over,
how we were planning days. We changed parks on some days because it became so problematic.
And even if you were to walk over to the Grand Floridian to hop on a monorail there, you're not saving any time by doing that either. Because that's kind of I mean, honestly, the Island Tower felt like it was equidistant from the bus stop at Polynesian and the main building at the Grand Floridian.
We considered going over to the bus at Grand Floridian a couple of times.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
So because you can't get into the lot for a ride share, you are now either limited to minivan or Disney transportation. So if you're going to Magic Kingdom, that's fine. You can walk, you can take a boat, or you can go all the way back over to the Grand Ceremonial House and hop on a monorail. That is a little bit of a hike. It's not horrifically far, but it's just far enough that it factors into your plans. The problem for me, and you referenced it, is specifically Epcot. Because it is a because the resort is situated next to the TTC, they do not offer anything but monorail service to Epcot. And that's fine if you're over at Tokelau or Pago Pago or Moorea. But if you're on the tower, you're actually right next to Grand Floridian. So the only way to get to Epcot is either A, go over to the lobby at Grand Floridian, hop on the monorail, take it to the TTC, and then transfer, or walk all the way to the TTC to get on the monorail. And that is a hike. That is a serious hike. And it's still a hike, not as much, but more of a hike to get over to the bus stop. And one of the things I said to the cast members when they asked how the stay was, if we stay at Yacht Club or Beach Club, there are 2 bus stops because they understand how vast that complex is. It makes 2 stops, 1 at each side. If you stay at Saratoga, it makes multiple stops. If you stay at Old Key West, it makes multiple stops. Even the moderates have multiple stops or an internal loop. There is no way right now for a bus to get in front of the Island Tower. And that is a long walk, especially when you're there for multiple days. It's hot. I have 2 little kids. I have a wife who's got a ton of hardware in her ankle. It really put a dent in how we were going back and forth to the parks. We took rideshare on the way back way more than we would just because we didn't want to walk back from the TTC or back from that bus stop. It is a serious, serious problem for a resort that charges that many points for a room. That was arguably my biggest issue with the entire ordeal. There's another one that ranked number 2 that's pretty close, but this whole separate but part of the same resort is just not working from a transportation standpoint. I get better transportation service at the values than I do at the Island Tower.
And I think that the the points value really is the issue here, because if I'm checking into Old Key West and I'm staying way down Turtle Pond Road or wherever it is where I'm going to be as far from the hospitality house as possible, but I'm spending 9 or 10 points a night on that room, I know what I'm getting. I know exactly what I've signed up for. I am choosing fewer points over the convenience. But that really shocked me about the Island Tower, was feeling like I had spent so many points to stay in this tower, and I wished that I was in a longhouse, because I just felt like my experience, it felt like everything just felt like, oh, this is like a schlep. Do I want to do this? Where do I want to go right now? Do I actually want to do this thing? Like, literally on the first night after Allie and I had arrived, we had gone down to the Wailulu Grill. We had gone back up to the room. We had then gone over to the Great Ceremonial House to get some drinks at the market over there. And then we came back, and then after fireworks, we were like, what should we do? And it took me, like, for a minute, I almost said, let's just stay in the room, because it felt like it's such a schlep. Now, we didn't, because it was our first night, and that would have felt like a huge waste, especially for a short trip. But it really does impact how, like, the stay, the choices that you make. And when you're paying that many points, you need more conveniences than that.
We did a video, and I mentioned that. Sorry, Amy. I mentioned that 26 points was what we paid for the Duo studio. This was on a Saturday, and for the same amount of points, we could have got a studio that sleeps 5 with 2 bedrooms over at the Longhouses.
2 bathrooms.
2 bathrooms, yeah. And I think, Amy, you even brought up in a text about when we stayed Animal Kingdom club level.
Same amount of points.
Same amount of points. So 26 points gets you club level at Animal Kingdom or a Duo studio at the Island Tower. So, it's all preference, but when you put it like that, it's not really much of a choice for me.
I mean, I'll give you an idea. We were above 280 points for our stay, and it was a big splurge. I had saved a bunch of points over years, knowing we were going to do this, knowing it was going to be a big trip. 280 some odd points to really be frustrated, to the point that next month I'm going to be planning next year's vacation. I'm going to be logging on and booking a week at the tower, and then at 7 months I'm going to be looking to see what's available at Wilderness Lodge or Grand Floridian or elsewhere, unless they fix some of these problems. I just cannot see spending the points that we spent for some of the lack of services we encountered.
And I just want to rewind a little bit because you talked about the lobby, and I I think that the lobby was beautiful. I think that when you walked in and, opposite, you've got the windows and the glass doors that you can then see out to Seven Seas Lagoon. That is really pretty. And there is, you're right, a ton of attention to detail. But what I really felt like overwhelmingly about the lobby was that it wasn't practical. There was a lot of seating space that rarely anybody ever used. I also had the experience where there wasn't a ton of cast members down there. The DVC guides were there all day, but there was like maybe, one or two people on an iPad, and there were people in line waiting to see them, without having a desk or without having, it felt like there was this big, huge space and none of the conveniences that you would really find in a lobby. I couldn't buy water. I couldn't, if I wanted to buy a bottle of water, I had to go all the way over, or mobile order but that just seems crazy too, to have to mobile order a bottle of water. So, the lobby to me just felt like this big space of, yes, some very creative elements that were very pretty, but overall a space that I wasn't drawn to spend time in at all. It was just a walk through space for me. And I do think that the fireworks viewing areas were really nice, but I take issue with the fact that all of those plants were plastic. There was no live plants in the lobby. There were no tiki torches outside. Like the things that are distinctly, tropical that regardless of whether you're looking at something that has like a more like old school Polynesian feel or a more modern like Hawaiian hotel, it lacked some of those things that bring that feel, like the tiki torches and the live plants. It felt a little stark to me, and I think that's why people, I don't think that it's the attention to detail that people are comparing to like a Hyatt or to, a Marriott or like even like a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons. It's that it's a little bit stark. It just feels kind of stark and bland and does not have a lot of functionality to it. So that was my issue with the lobby. And the grounds too, like the lack of tiki torches on the grounds outside of Wailulu Grill, like to me, that is a huge oversight. Allie and I sat down to eat in the evening and it was really dark. And if they had had tiki torches lining the walkway, it would have added an element of ambiance that would have made me feel like more just like even Wailulu Grill is not a place that I'm like dying to get back to. And the whole experience to me felt like a one and done. I feel like if I love the Polynesian, I will definitely stay in the longhouses again. I will never use my points again to stay at the Island Tower because it just feels like a lot of points for a lot of inconvenience. And when I think about like the warmth and the feeling I get when I enter into the lobby at Polynesian, I did not get that feeling at all at the Island Tower.
So yeah, I just want to step in really quick because you touched on something, and we did not have that much of a negative reaction to the ambiance. We liked that, but you really touched upon my second largest issue that I had, and I think maybe they play together. I don't think it's necessarily that the lobby is stark; it's that it's cavernous and underutilized. So to kind of back it up to when we arrived, we had spent the first night over in the longhouses just because we needed one extra night. In the morning, I go over to Bell Services and I leave my bags. They are hand delivered to Bell Services in front of the Grand Ceremonial House. We go to Typhoon Lagoon. By 2:00, our room is ready. Very happy surprise. In the meantime, I've also had an owner's locker delivered, and I've had an Instacart order delivered, a fairly large Instacart order. We go back over to the Island Tower. We walk in, we see our room. I call down to get my bags delivered. 25 minutes on hold and nobody answers at Bell Services. Finally, I go downstairs to the lobby. Now I'm staying At a deluxe resort for a lot of points per night, one would think there should be a desk or an individual down there that is capable of handling this problem. What I have is an individual with an iPad, and that iPad has no access to anything that's actually on the grounds. All he can do is look up my reservation and check me in. His answer is that he is going to take a note, literally the Notes app on his iPad, and he is then going to text over to Bell Services to get my bags delivered. I go back up to my room. I wait an additional 20 minutes. No phone call. Nobody arrives. I finally come out of the tower, walk all the way over to the Grand Ceremonial House, and inform Bell Services what is going on. They call, okay, not a problem. We're going to get your luggage. I said, by the way, I've got an owner's locker and I've got an Instacart order. I get all the way back to the room. As I'm walking in, the phone's ringing. They cannot find my luggage. They have no record of it being dropped off. Now, I have the tag in my hand. Are you sure it came here? I said, I hand delivered it this morning. Okay, not a problem. They call back. They've got my luggage, but they can't find my owner's locker. Are you sure it got delivered here? I said, I absolutely did. Well, we can't find it. 20 minutes later, they call back. We found your owner's locker. We also have your Instacart order. They come, they deliver everything to the room, except my Instacart order is missing three bags rather. Call, cannot get anyone at Bell Services again for another 20 minutes. Go back down to the lobby. They still can't help me. I have to go back over to the Grand Ceremonial House, explain what I'm missing. They find what I'm missing. Now either they can deliver it or I have to hand carry my 3 bags all the way back over to the tower to get it taken care of. They have nobody in the lobby that can address any issues whatsoever. They are simply greeters and salespeople. That is it. Now, again, we're talking about an enormous amount of points to stay in this tower. And when you go downstairs, there is all the room in the world there for a desk and some connectivity. There is all the room in the world there for a Bell Services desk that can collect your luggage and put it aside. They just didn't make any provisions for it. That lobby is there for one purpose and one purpose only. As beautiful as it is, and we did love it, it is there to sell more DVC. Even when we had 4 or 5 cast members there, they were still outnumbered by the number of salespeople that were sitting in the lobby giving tours. And if you think the Grand Ceremonial House is busy and looks like a mall with people coming in to visit, that pales in comparison to what we experienced in the lobby. I think that everything there right now, the way it's set up, is designed to simply sell points. There were a couple of occasions because their preview room is on the 5th floor. So we were constantly riding up and down to our room with guides. And one of them had a young couple with her, and she said, how's your stay going? And I said, well, I'm going to do you the favor of not ruining your sale just yet, but I'll get back to you.
Wow.
And also, I mean, I think that I mentioned this on the podcast or maybe not, but that DVC guide was put the hardest sell on me than I've never been hard sold for DVC ever. And I was walking through the lobby and I was taking video. I was clearly taking video of the lobby, and this DVC guide said to me, could I interest you in some points? And I said, I'm already a DVC member. And he said, oh, well, you could always add on. And I said, I'm good right now. I already own 2 resorts. I'm holding out for Lakeshore Lodge. And he said, well, what about 25 points? Could I interest you in 25 points? And I was like, this guy is like, I feel like I'm on on one of the islands and just got off a cruise ship, and some guy's like trying to sell me a watch,
Right,
like,
or a used car salesman. You think you hate it now,
Yeah.
just wait till you drive it.
Yeah, like I couldn't believe that he was just like he wasn't taking no for an answer. He was putting on this hard sell, and it was really and truly the first time. Even when my DVC guides have called me and said, "Hey, I want to let you know about this latest promotion we have," and when I say I'm not interested, they say, "Okay, great. How are things going with your membership?" Little bit of small talk. Okay, give us a call if you need anything. Bye. End of story. This was really shocking. In 23 years of DVC membership, I've never had somebody put a hard sell on me like that. And it was really off putting. And so I think you're right. I mean, I think that just further supports that lobby is meant to be kind of like a showpiece. And it is all of that seating is meant for people who are waiting for tours. It's not, that lobby is not catering to the people who are staying in that island tower.
And the most frequent vehicle we saw pull up in front of that island tower was the DVC transport van to take them back over to Saratoga. It was nonstop, just one after the other, DVC vans pulling in to take people on tours over at another resort.
And we talk a lot about Riviera, and clearly, we have our opinions about Riviera, but the Riviera lobby, although small, I have sat in that lobby on numerous occasions and felt like it was cozy and I enjoyed people watching. And, I'll get a coffee or a drink from Le Petit Cafe and, and sit there. Like I didn't feel that. I didn't feel drawn to do that at the Island Tower at all. I didn't want to sit and people watch. I just wanted to get out of there, especially after I was basically like swooped down on like by a hawk who was trying to sell me more 25 DVC points. Like, no thanks.
Yeah, the lobby is overwhelming. It's not welcoming. There's a difference.
Yeah. And I think, that was my overall feeling. And then, to talk about the rooms, there was a lot that I really liked about the deluxe studio. Like there was, a nice, I enjoyed that there was like the little banquette with a table where you could sit and eat or have a cup of coffee. The layout is similar to the layout of the villas at the Disneyland Hotel, where you have that the kitchenette is kind of like in the main space. It's not separate in that entry hallway. But what really missed the mark for me was the bathroom, because to compare it to the longhouses where you have such conveniences in the studios with the bathrooms, with the split concept, and you have a shower in one and a bath and a shower in the other, and somebody could be getting ready in one bathroom while the other one's going to the bathroom or whatnot. This was one big space where there was no privacy. Like there's no privacy that existed in that bathroom. And while I didn't stay in the duo studio, I watched Scott and Kathleen's video, and I hate that the vanity is like a part of like the main living space. I hate that.
Yeah.
I think that is the dumbest, least convenient thing ever. And so, if I were to, and also that room is like way too big. Like it felt like a waste of space to me. If honestly, like when I stayed in the tower studio at Riviera, I thought like, oh, I probably don't need to do this again. But the bathroom at Riviera, I really liked. I thought that, like the living space was a little bit small, but it was like honestly all I needed. So I don't know. That duo studio just seemed like really odd to me, where it has like the kitchenette and the vanity, like all in the same space with like all of this floor space, like tons of room for activities. You know what I'm saying?
It was completely the opposite of the Tower studio at Riviera.
Yeah. It was like as soon as I walked in on the left, I was surprised. I'm like, is that the bathroom sink? And it's like that's where you brush your teeth at. That's where you shave.
They just flip-flopped. There's no living space in the Tower studio at Riviera, but a huge, nice bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
But at the Island Tower, you have a tiny bathroom with big living space.
Because the toilet area and the shower is just like a little, it's just like a little nook, basically. The shower was nice. I like the shower a lot, but yeah, it was just like a little nook for the toilet area, and then the actual sink itself was not in the same area. It was like across the hall, I guess you would say. Not the hall, but across the... But yeah, it was complete opposite. Tower Studios at Riviera, I felt like were 90% bathroom and 10% living space. And then you have these, it was the exact opposite. And they had these little tables and stools in there. Like I had no idea what that little blue stool was for. I felt like if you had a 2-year-old, it would have been perfect. Because I'm not going to sit my chunky butt on that thing, I'll tell you that.
Well, in the deluxe studio, they had that little stool, and that's supposed to be what you would sit on if you wanted to sit at the desk and do work. But who's going to sit on a stool with no back and, doing work on their laptop? I mean, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, we didn't even have the desk. We just had the stool. Like
they had enough space in there for it.
Oh, they definitely did. But it was just like, I'm looking at that thing. Like, what am I going to do? I don't know. It just...
My other issue with the room was the plug, the outlets. I didn't
With
think
the
there
lack
was
of.
the lack of.
I mean, again, it's meant for two people, like the duo studio, so there wasn't going to be a lot. But even on the dresser, like a lot of the dressers have the extra plugs and the USBs under the TV. There wasn't any at all. I don't think I had a table. Like, I always complain about not having a bedside table on my side of the bed. There's no table. There's no shelf there at all. So your phone and your charging things are just on the floor. It's just little things
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
annoying.
Yeah, but that's problematic. That drives me out of my mind, especially if I've got an alarm set on a phone that I just want to be able to reach for instead of having to roll out of bed or walk to the dresser all the way across the room. I feel like the one bedroom did not have a lot of those problems. There were bedside tables on both sides next to the king. There were numerous USB, USB-C, and regular standard outlets on either side of the bed. There was plenty of places to plug things in on the dresser. There were places to plug things in on the Murphy bed that folded out of the wall. The bathrooms I thought were solid. The bathroom off the main area very much was reminiscent of a Polynesian bathroom, the same kind of tile work, the same coloring, the same stand-up shower. The bathroom off the one bed had a toilet on one side with a door that separated it. It had a bath in the center. It had a stand-up shower with a bench off to the right. You had two separate sinks, two separate vanities, decent lighting. My problem in there was simply the size of the bath. You guys know my wife. She's like 5'1" on a really good day in heels, and she could not sit in the bathtub and stay covered in water. Either everything from the waist up was exposed, or she couldn't keep her legs in there. It was like a toddler-sized bath. She was really disappointed. One of her biggest things about the one beds is having those giant baths to go and relax at night. She spent one night in there and never went back. I think she was really disappointed. She just simply didn't fit. My other one hit on the room is there is a ton of storage space for clothes, drawers, things like that in the bedroom side of it. But for those that are staying in the Murphy or the single pull down, there's zero space for anything. Luckily, in our owner's locker, we keep some hanging organizers to put the kids' clothes in. That's the only way we're able to store all of their clothes for that length of a trip. And the only other place that I found that had inadequate storage like that was the studio over at Bay Lake Tower, where there's just no storage for anything. We were storing in the kitchen. If you're going to sleep 3 people out on that side of the room, you need a place for their clothing. You need a place for them to put things. And there just was nothing. Scott, Kathleen, you guys walked in. You saw we had things kind of strewn all over the place there because there's no place to store anything in that living area side of the room. And there's a lot of space there, a ton of cabinetry space in the kitchen that won't ever get used, but nowhere to store clothes for the potential 3 people that could be staying on that side of the unit.
Yeah, it was very spacious, very nice. Definitely a lot of cabinets. But yeah, I didn't
One closet.
I didn't think
That's
about
all you
that.
have there is one closet to store things. And in that closet, the one shelf is 6.5 feet high, and there's just a coat rack. Luckily, we had some tools to do that. Otherwise, there's no way you're storing enough clothing for a week for 5 people in that unit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a horrible thought process.
Yeah, and in fairness, I was excited for the Island Tower, and I got particularly excited after we had gone over to Saratoga and saw the model one bedroom, because I thought the model one bedroom was gorgeous. After staying there, I feel like the 1 and 2 bedrooms are really, really the selling point. Much more so. Like I just can't see a scenario where I would ever choose to stay in a studio in the Island Tower over in a longhouse.
Same here. If we were staying in a studio, we'd go old school, OG, Polynesian in a heartbeat. I just think there's so much more to be offered on that side of the resort, in those rooms, in those buildings.
Yeah, and for me, the it's too rich for my blood. The point chart for the 1 and 2 bedrooms, especially given the issues that we talked about. One other issue that I had in the studio, and I don't know if you noticed it in the 1 bedroom or in the duo studio, was the lighting was so weird. It was like there was like this track of lighting that went around the perimeter of the room, like close to the ceiling. And that was either on or off. Like you couldn't do like one side of the room on, one side of the room off. And so the lighting, like the room to me either felt like it was way too bright or way too dark, because there was no kind of like, oh, I could just put this one light over here over the desk. Either like the entire wall was lit up or it was off. And the other thing I thought was just weird was, and even when I went to the model studio and in all of the pictures, it looked like that artwork that was above the dresser, where like the desk, dresser, banquette area. I thought that it was carved wood, and it was not. It was painted canvas made to look kind of 3D-ish. It had like a 3D effect to make it look like it was carved wood. And that was disappointing for me. Like when I got there, because in all of the pictures, I thought, wow, that's like really like the attention to detail here, and that artwork is really beautiful. And when I got there, I was like, oh, this is just, you know, printed canvas. It doesn't look as impressive when you realize that it's not an actual like carved. Which to me, I mean, I guess like that's the old, like I'm an old DVC owner. Those are the types of details that they would bring into rooms, when they were building these new resorts in the 1990s, just all of like this intricate level of detail. They just did not infuse that into the room as much, but I mean that's being a little nitpicky, but overall, like I probably will not stay in the Island Tower again because I'm mainly a studio stayer now, and if I'm going to stay at the Polynesian, I'm going to pick a longhouse. If I want to stay in a 1 and 2 bedroom, I'm going to pick a resort that it has a more affordable point chart.
The lighting was not a problem in the 1 bedroom, nor were the hand carved issues. It's incredible to me. I think you just hit the nail on the head. The selling point here is the bigger rooms, because there were so many light switches. We were still confused after a week because you could turn them on in any combination. There was the light over the kitchen, there was the light over the dining room table, there was the entryway light, there was a light over the Murphy beds. You could put all of them on, some of them on. Even the main bedroom, you could turn on the overhead light, or you had table side lights or bedside lights, I guess, hung next to the headboard. The bathroom had various switches, and that piece of artwork, which I think is really one of the standouts of the 1 bedroom, that and the one over the tub, was, at least it looked all hand carved. It was quite nice. So it's incredible to me the stark difference between what was available in the studio and what was available in the 1 bedroom. Like they went all out with the bigger rooms and just kind of phoned it in with the small rooms.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, and I wonder if they anticipate that, because the other odd decision that they made with the studios at the Island Tower is that they only sleep 4, where the longhouses sleep 5. So, I stayed in the Island Tower just because I wanted to, because I wanted to give it a shot. But in terms of space, I don't know who would ever really pick the Island Tower studio or over a Longhouse studio unless they really were like married to that theme park fireworks view. That would be the only reason. But there are studios in that building that don't have theme park views. So, I don't know. I don't know who that is. Who's going to be booking those? I mean, maybe that's just going to be the kind of like, how the resort studios at Grand Floridian, like they seem to be available more than so if you want to stay at Grand Floridian and the Villas building is booked, oh, well, okay, then I guess I'll book the resort studio. Like maybe that's going to happen with the Island Tower Deluxe Studios.
Yeah, I mean, walking away from it, I guess our take from it in the end was it's still our home resort. It's still Polynesian. We still love it. We really did like the design. We loved the 1 bedroom. The point cost is high. There's no doubt about it. The point cost is high. But with that said, if they were to fix the transportation issue, I can understand why they didn't have a monorail stop. I can see where that would be entirely problematic. It's too close to the Grand Ceremonial House. It already gets too overloaded going to Grand Floridian, where you have to wait for multiple monorails to go by sometimes. Bring a bus stop over. We need a separate bus stop. And I was actually told by a cast member to specifically forward that complaint to DVC, because the cast members at the Island Tower have already been in conversations with DVC and with Imagineering to make that happen, because that is one of the most frequent complaints they get from people staying there. So number one, you've got to fix the transportation problem. That to me is just a deal killer for that new tower, as much as we loved it. Number two, you need some standard industry-wide hotel availability services in that lobby, period. I cannot be walking over to the Grand Ceremonial House when I want a snack or a water, or I need to check on my bags, or I have a question for the front desk. It's just, it's baffling to me that there is nobody there that can take care of your problem. Even Bay Lake Tower, they've only got that little silly desk up front, but they can still take care of all your issues right there. You've got a baggage problem, you need something, it's right there. This is just too far away from the Grand Ceremonial House to have everything go back to that one main location. Maybe it's a staffing problem. Maybe they didn't foresee it. But when I can walk down to the lobby of an Embassy Suites and have everything taken care of, but I can't do that at the Polynesian Island Tower, that's a big, big problem. But if you get those things fixed, fix the quick serve, fix the poolside service, fix the transportation, and put some cast members in the lobby, we would go back unreservedly. I think we loved the tower itself, but they've got some serious bugs they've got to work out.
Put a guard shack out there too.
Yes, I'm sorry, that was also up there. Put a guard shack out there, or figure out some kind of way that, there were times where we just don't want to walk to the monorail. And I would look up Uber and Lyft, and they would be $11 to get over to Epcot. It was $46 to take a minivan. And you know what? Everyone was so tired, and my wife's ankle was swollen, and you could tell that, the hardware was starting to act up. I bit the bullet and got the $46 minivan because it was a comfort issue for everybody. But when a standard Lyft or Uber Comfort was $11 and they were almost $50, that's a big problem.
I mean, honestly, you'd be better off to walk over to the wedding pavilion and take an Uber from there. Because
it's
an
right
Uber
there.
That is literally the closest thing to the closest access point that a vehicle would have is the wedding pavilion. And maybe if people start doing that, then they'll come up with a solution, because they're not going to want to have the wedding pavilion turn into a ride share.
Right. Think about that, though. If you
location.
want to get a ride share at the Island Tower, you have to walk over to the wedding pavilion at the Grand Floridian. That's a bad look.
Yeah. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to say, which was not great either, was I'm curious to know how your experiences were. The room was not soundproofed. I mean, every morning, the person running, like the kid running above us, it was like they were running in the room with us. And then also, speaking of the wedding pavilion, the landscapers every morning over at the wedding pavilion with their leaf blower and all of the landscaping that they were doing, it was so loud. I thought that they must have been right outside, like down below. I looked out one morning, and I mean, it was early. They start that work early in the morning as soon as the sun is up. And I looked out, and that noise was coming from the wedding pavilion. So there's also a sound issue at least in the unit that I was in.
We woke up to whoever it was above us, the water running. You could hear water.
Yeah, they must have been on their honeymoon or something. I don't know what kind of noises those were, but it was just really weird.
No, we heard the shower, the sink, the toilet, footsteps, talking. Yeah, I mentioned it when we were laying there. I'm like, I hear everything.
Yeah, they were paper thin for sure.
I think that there must have been no one around us, because we actually commented that we did not hear a lot of noise, at least from our bedroom, on a very regular basis. And we didn't hear anything from the wedding pavilion because we were on the opposite side of the building. We were overlooking the road. So we did get some construction noises, but I just kind of passed that off to that's a long-term project and that'll be fixed at some point when they get Floridian Way widened. But we did not have the noise problem. And a few times we heard the toilet flushing occasionally, but it was not overwhelming like we've had at other places like Copper Creek. Copper Creek was awful.
We heard there was a lot of outside noise considering where our room was. Like you could hear a lot of people outside too.
Yeah. Did you guys talk about Wailulu?
Briefly.
Yeah,
I just want to say real quick. I mean, I really was looking forward to that. Just the idea that they were going to have their own restaurant there. And the food is okay. I'm not going to knock the food, but it's just okay for me. I think a lot of the dishes are solid, but it's just like okay. But I am going to say, like, from a drink standpoint, I wasn't impressed with their drink menu. I think they should change it up. And I mean, I paid $17 for an old fashioned, and I watched the bartender make the drink. And this is just a, first world complaint, but the amount of alcohol that they actually put into a $17 drink was absurd.
Well, and those glasses are tiny and they load them with ice because I had the same complaint too. I felt like when I had 2 drinks, I was done with them in like 4 sips and they were just okay and they were so expensive.
I'll have to
Right.
check with them on the alcohol. I didn't have anything to drink, as is typical of me. The one thing I will say, we tried a lot of things on the menu. The burger that Luke had, I thought was excellent, and those ribs were incredible. Everything else was decent. I won't say it was great. I won't say it was bad, but we had the ribs, I think, 3 times, and to us, they were the star of the show.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of solid options there, but I don't know. I guess like I was just looking forward to like that bar. That whole area is beautiful, like sitting outside, being able to be at the bar, how it's like open like that. But there's just nothing like on the menu that actually would make me want to just specifically go there and visit that bar.
Yeah, I felt like to me it kind of felt like chain restaurant quality food. Like those were like those ahi nachos I could have gotten at like a Cheesecake Factory. Like that is like kind of what I felt about the food. It was fine. It wasn't memorable. It was really the drinks that annoyed me because I agree, Scott. I was looking forward to having another place that was kind of like Geyser Point-esque, where you could sit outside, overlook the water, have a couple drinks. I don't know what it is about that place, but I don't know if it's the orientation of the tables that it's kind of set back, maybe that they don't have the tiki torches. I don't know. It didn't give me that same type of like the way that I love Geyser Point. It didn't hit that way for me.
Definitely. And it
I think
was
it's
that was just one more thing. Like, we talk about like if you'd rather stay at the longhouses or like I'm staying at the Island Tower and I'm walking right by Wailulu Bar and Grill, and I would rather go over to the Tiki Terrace, Trader Sam's Tiki Terrace, just to sit over there and get the vibe and get a drink over there.
I think a lot of it comes down to what you like for the vibe because we like Geyser Point. I don't think we love Geyser Point like you guys do. We really did like the vibe of Wailulu. I think I'll like the vibe of Wailulu maybe in the future when there's less people coming in to just visit and do the looky-loo thing where they're just piled up in front of you looking out at the water.
Sadly, I feel like that is never going to stop because it's like,
Yeah, you're probably not wrong.
with the social media effect is going to make that a place that people are just going to always go to. So,
Now, one other little dig, if you're going to build these overlooks that everyone is supposed to be sitting on to watch the fireworks, could you point them towards the fireworks instead of our side of the building that was mostly pointed towards the Contemporary? Please, someone check sightlines.
Everybody's crowded in one corner of the
The
outlook.
far right-hand corner in order to see the fireworks, and we put all the kids over there, and then we either looked over their heads or just sat there and listened to the soundtrack because you couldn't see it. It was just, I get why they did it, but if you're going to advertise those as fireworks view, it should be more than just 20% of the overlook that sees the fireworks. Wow, we tore that place apart pretty good, didn't we?
well, honestly, I feel like for me, Disney hasn't really. Well, I was going to say Disney just really has not nailed the tower concept, you know,
I
because
think they've
Bay
done
Lake
pretty well
Tower.
elsewhere.
Well, Bay Lake Tower has always it is climbing up on my list, but it's taken a while for me to get there. I think that the villas at the Disneyland Hotel are probably their best tower concept, and for me, for like my preferences. At Disney World, I just, I mean, I guess the Grand Destino Tower is one that is fine.
I think that's well done for a moderate, though.
Yeah, for a moderate, for sure. Yes, I agree with that. But in terms of really getting a deluxe feel in a tower, like it's just not. They haven't perfected it for me yet, and I'm curious. Look, you guys know I'm all in on Lakeshore Lodge, no matter what that thing looks like. But I hope that they are continuing to learn some lessons as they continue to build these taller these taller buildings.
All right, does that wrap it up, guys? We're over an hour.
Yeah.
You got anything else?
No, I think that pretty much sums everything up. I mean, it's like any other place. It was okay. People were going to love it. Some people were going to complain about the things that we said, but I don't know. I mean, I think it was just okay. And like what Amy said, for us, I really think it's going to be a one and done for us.
Mm-hmm. Just because of all you said about the points. I could go spend those points somewhere else and not have to walk 20 miles to get somewhere.
We're going to list it as a 1 in we'll see.
I was listening back, what Scott referenced at the beginning of the podcast when I was listening to our, the episode of the podcast about the Kilimanjaro Club. And Kathleen said that, or Scott said that it cost 26 points for them for the night, and they got all of that free food, and they had a Savannah view. And then when Kathleen and I were texting about the Duo Studio, and she said she spent 26 points on it, I had just heard on the podcast that it was the same points, and that really, to me, it's like those are the types of things that just put things into perspective for me, and that was shocking. So,
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you as always for listening along. It's been a while since we got together. You've heard us every week, but we haven't seen each other in a while. If you all could give us a like and a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, we would very much appreciate it. Amy?
And be sure to join us on Facebook at DVC Clubhouse. You can share your thoughts with us there. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And until next time, we'll DVC you real soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
See you guys.
And so our journey comes to an end.
Oh, no, please, can't we go back to page 1 and do it all over again?
Started this thing together, and that's how we'll finish it.
Because that, my friends, is where the magic lives.